Flozell Daniels with the Foundation for Louisiana. You know, for us at the Foundation, our focus is really on investing in people and practices that work to build resilience and strengthen communities. And what we've learned and what we know from best practice is that you have to work across sectors to optimize resources, both financial and decision-making resources, so that you can make the best decisions, both up front and while you're doing the work of disaster recovery, as well as building resilience in communities. We know it's critical for us to work with the public sector, the philanthropic sector and nonprofit leaders, as well as community members in the private sector, to optimize our resources to get that work done. From the New Orleans and the Louisiana perspective, I think early on what we saw was a need for information and for input. And so we saw philanthropists working with the public sector, working with nonprofits and the community at large and the business community to develop something we call the Unified New Orleans Plan. And it took a collaboration, leveraging resources, pulling people in through the use of technology who were displaced in Houston, Texas, and Arkansas and Atlanta to make sure they could participate in decision making. Businesses could understand who was coming back or what was the likelihood of communities coming back. We could plan and forecast for both federal, state, and local government what we should be doing over the next 5 to 10 years. And it was really an example of how we can use data from the community with best practice and leaders from across sectors to affect a way forward with regard to disaster recovery. Actually, I think one of the reasons why it's important to work across sectors is to sustain them. And so if the public sector knows it can rely on the innovation and leadership of philanthropy, who knows it can rely on the on-the-ground sort of truth-making, if you will, of the nonprofit and NGO community. And if the community, we consider that a sector also, really understands that its leadership across the breadth of those sectors, especially with the private sector driving economies in local and regional spaces and places, if we can rely on each other, we think it creates the kind of trust and stick-to-itness, if you will, that makes these things work. The other thing that has to happen is the development of permanent infrastructure. We have to decide to set the table. We have to create consensus goals and metrics and decide how we're going to move forward and create some permanence in those constructs so that we can actually be ready for ongoing disaster risk.